Person I chose for my deep listening interview was Michael James Webster, or like we call him, Mikey. He is my long-term boyfriend of 3 years. And the reason why I chose him to do my interview was because we are very, very close. Obviously, we're in a relationship, but we are like best friends, and I feel like I pretty much know everything about him. But every now and then there are certain topics that we decide to talk about, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know where you stood on that, or what decision you would make if we were in this situation. And it's really interesting to just learn more about him in that way and truly be able to connect deeply with him that way. So I chose him, and I'm really glad I did because I learned a lot about him in his earlier years in life, and how they affect the kind of person that he is now. One of the most important things that I learned from him during this interview was how great of an impact his grandmother had on him. His mother was only 16 years old and in high school when she gave birth to him, and the father was and is not in the picture. So he was solely raised by his grandmother up until he was about 5th grade, until she passed away from cancer, which really, really affected him. But the lessons and the impact that she made on his life in the first 10 years was so great, and it truly shows through the type of person that he is now. And she taught him to just always be strong and be that person who is going to go out and get anything that they want in life, no matter what, and really showed him that it's okay to have something that's no longer for you and move on from it. And he does share a few examples of them doing that in his life and the impact that it had on them. I snipped together all the parts that he was talking about his grandmother. The most important part in my presentation and the life lesson that I learned from my interviewee, Mikey, was how the impact of his specific upbringing had on his teenage years, and how it's so prevalent in the vision that he has for his future. The listening wisdom points that I use while conducting this interview on Mikey was mainly from Dr. Ralph Nichols' listening habits, specifically 5 through 8. The other listening wisdom point that I used was also just the definition of concentration, and how I really paid attention and I was curious about what he had to say, and that stemmed me asking other questions and getting other answers from him. What is your most cherished childhood memory?
Most cherished childhood memory would probably be hanging out with my grandmother when we would go to Sonic and get slushies, and then we would go to Shelby Farms and play at the park, go biking, stuff like that.
What was the worst phase in your life?
Probably the worst phase of my life was transitioning from moving from Memphis to Jacksonville, Florida, just because I was at a very young age. I was leaving 3rd grade, going into 4th grade at another elementary school, completely different place, left all my friends. So that was definitely a challenging moment.
And I know you had lived with her for quite a while, since your mom was really young when she had you. Did you ever feel like your life was different because you lived with your grandma and not with your parents?
I think when I came back to Memphis for that 1 year, back from when I moved in Jacksonville and came back, that was also the same year that she was diagnosed with cancer. So it was really tough being there at the same time and like seeing that. But I think honestly it was meant to be. We didn't know that was going to happen until I went back, but I got to spend her last year with her. So